Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for waiting. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for waiting. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us.
All of the blessings, all of the love, all of the peace, all of the joy. My name is Erin Washington. I am the founder of SoulCenter. So grateful to be here with my brother, my homeboy, Tyrone Davis, new Associate Artistic Director at Center Theater Group. We are coming here today to create space in our world today for a fantastic giant of a human being, Martin Luther King Jr. I'm actually a product of Montgomery, Alabama, and it is such a blessing to be able to bring three maverick waymakers, path clearers tonight to talk about their journeys in the creation of their Black theaters. I'd like to welcome to space here at Center Theater Group my mentor and beloved Rhodessa Jones, founder of the Medea Project. Rhodessa.
Hello,
I love you
hello.
so much. Thank you for being here.
I made it.
You made it. Look.
Thank you for having me. This is marvelous.
Yes, and I'm looking at hair color, sister. I see you. All right. I also like to welcome a fantastic artist, founder of New Federal Theater that is now 50 years old, Mr. Woodie King Jr. Let's welcome him into space. Hello, Mr. King. How you doing, sir?
I'm fine. I'm glad that the Center Theater Group decided to host this because, you know, they had been lacking in participation for so many years.
That's right.
So I am glad of that. And see this brother Tyrone Davis working with them.
All right, new Associate Artistic Director. Come on.
Yes.
And so joining Mr. Woodie King and Rhodessa Jones is the founder of the Town Street Theater in Los Angeles, Mrs. Nancy Davis. Let's welcome Ms. Nancy Davis-Bellamy into space.
Hello.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Of course. So, let's get into the conversation. Today is Martin Luther King's Day. Let's shout it out for Martin Luther King. Hey, look, as we honor MLK today, I also want us to honor and remember his wife, Rhodessa King, who was also a huge maverick in the space of peace and justice. May we also remember Lorraine Hansberry as we remember MLK. May we also remember Malcolm X. May we also remember Bayard Rustin. May we also remember Audre Lorde. These are also folks that were hugely important to this time,
Yes.
that have not been centered in a day, right? So let's just start right there. Like, what was 1968 for you? We have a lot of folks here listening tonight that are young theater creators, that are young makers into huge social movement. What was that moment of 1968 for you? And what would be the beginnings and the emergings of some of these companies that you founded?
It's amazing. We were talking about the whole technology. We were talking about that earlier before we went on. And someone has a mic on and it's making little noises. The first thing is you can't touch anything. Okay. But what was so amazing is I have a dream, a touring production. I toured about 8 years after Dr. King was killed. And we went all over the world, We went Rome. We went to South America, certain cities in Africa, all over the United States at colleges and universities. And it was a musical. And it had been done for a short while on Broadway. Then I did a film called Death of a Prophet. And I was able to get Yolanda King, Dr. King's daughter, to play Malcolm's wife. And that was so invigorating. We would sit around and talk a great deal about her dad. I had her and Morgan Freeman. And he sort of like inculcated that into his character, Martin Luther King, and it didn't work. And she made him realize that it didn't work. And that was such a great conversation. And that was a long time ago. But I did that in, those are two projects that bring me to this day of which we are here talking about Dr. King.
Yes.
You know?
That's fantastic, Woody. That's fantastic. Nancy or Rhodessa?
Well, I was 10 years old in 1968. So,
right.
Right. But it had a profound impact on me because I was coming with my family. I'm from Detroit, from the town of River Rouge. And we were coming back from my aunt's house in Canada. And we, as we're coming across the bridge, we start hearing about the riots because it was right when the start of the riots in July 1968. So that was very impactful for me growing up in a Black neighborhood that was segregated. White people lived on one side of the tracks, Black people lived on the other side of the tracks, but we all got together in high school. But it impacted me, I think, going forward, obviously. So our theater was founded in 1993, but I'll wait till we get to that.
Yes,
point.
of course. Of course.
Yeah, I'm here with the greats. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I've been hearing static, but it sounds better now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I was raised in upstate New York. I'm a migrant worker's child. So can you hear me? Oh, gotta unmute me, people. Where we at?
No, you're not muted. You good.
Oh.
There you go. You got it. We can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah,
but, I would just like to say that in 1968, I was a 16-year-old teenager with a 3-year-old daughter. My mother and father were migrants. I was living in way upstate New York, and at night we would just cling to the television. We would just, we would sit around the television, and my mother and father were just like incredibly moved, even though it was scary. There's a lot going on, but they felt like they were a part of the motion. They were a part of what was going on in the country. And I remember sitting up in this big old farmhouse with these two Black people. My mother had grown up in Georgia. My father actually grown up in Georgia too, but my mother had witnessed lynchings when she was a girl, so she was going through all of that. And my dad had spent a much easier life, but they were migrant workers. They were working the fields, but at night, the news, we were all over the news. It was like we just felt like something was happening in America, and we were all a part of it. I remember the surge of energy that was going on. Yeah, in 1968. Yeah.
It's interesting, Rhodessa. Thank you for that surge of energy. You know, Mr. King, when you started New Federal Theater, what was the energy that you felt, that surge to make you want to develop and create your space?
Well, I graduated from drama school in Michigan, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and I ran across all these stories and about Black Americans, artists in the Federal Theater Project, and from 1935 to 1939. But when I came to New York, a lot of these people were alive. Fred O'Neill, a lot of these people was around, and I could talk to them, and they would tell me about this energy. And so I said, well, in starting the new Federal Theater, I had them as consultants. I had them as partners. I had all these people who were deeply rooted in the original Federal Theater, even though they were 75 and 80 years old, or at major universities where they were teaching. But in New York City, there was this almost unbelievable clack of people who had come out of this and had no work.
Speak on that, Mr. King. That's good. I said that's a great point to put out. They had no work. No work,
and it was like a unbelievable love of Black people that I've always had in Black literature and Black poets, and my relationship with Langston Hughes helped solidify that. And when he told me of all the people that he knew and he could introduce me to, it just built, and out of that came the New Federal Theater.
That's profound, Mr. King. And now you're 50.
I've been around, New Federal Theater's been around 50 years. And we just celebrated our 50th anniversary last night.
Last night, everyone check it out. It's still on the website, right?
Yes.
Can you tell them where to go?
Yes, you can see it. It's an hour and 25 minutes.
Fantastic.
Fast. You'll see all those people, from Glenn Turman to Felicia Rashad to Essie Pather Murkison to Douglas Turner Ward to Cliff Frazier. All of those people are there.
That's fantastic. How does it feel to have an institution that is 50 years old? When you were first creating that space, did you ever think that it would get there that far?
I didn't think about it at all. I didn't think one way or another. I was acting, I was writing, I was doing, I got 7 or 8 films I made during that time. I got about 6 books I've written and edited, Rhodessa and I go way back with Idris Ackamore, and so it's like a coming together. It's like a working where we've been working together since wow.
I
you speak on that, yeah.
You were talking about being interested you were just interested in Black people, and you felt it. When I did start coming to New York and doing my cutting edge stuff, you came and we sat and you talked, and it was just last night I was looking at by a documentary on Lorraine Hansberry, and they were saying the same thing, that her love of Black people, her love of the people, and wanting to celebrate who they were, versus what had been handed to us for so long, especially dealing with Broadway. See, I wasn't a New York girl, but Woodie, you were such an important energy. You were such an icon. And when I was even at La Mama working, people would say, Woodie King's in the audience, Woodie King's in the audience. And, okay, well, we got to check out Woodie King. And you were always just so warm and open, and that was something about knowing you that was assuring that we were on the right path and that we should be working and doing it. There was something that your president said, do your work. It's important that you do your work. And I think it stems from the love of Black artists and Black people. And here we are. And of course, Martin Luther King's whole life, his fiber was about the love and the life of Black people. Yeah.
Nancy said something that sort of like resonates. She is from River Rouge, Michigan. And after I got out of high school, they recruited me out of high school to come work at the Ford Motor Company at the Rouge plant. And here I was, maybe 16 or 17, and they give you a car, and you have to pay by half that everybody else pays. And I was driving back and forth to River Rouge and supervising very, very old people. And they would say, young blood. You know how you get the name young blood? Get out of here, young blood. Get out of here. Get out of here, young blood. So that's what I remember about River Rouge,
River Rouge, yeah. That's fascinating. My dad worked at Ford's, as we call it, for 40 years, because everybody in my neighborhood worked at Ford's, and that was the tragedy of the auto industry, right?
Yes.
Because the whole darn city and all the suburbs were dependent on the auto industry, and that was, I think, the beginning of the end when all that happened, to see Detroit go down like that. But they're coming back, they're coming back, which is good. That's awesome. So did you want me to talk about Town Street's founding? Because it sort of ties in with all of this.
Let's go for that.
Let's later.
You were going to bring in Rhodessa to speak about cultural odyssey and the project. Go for it, Nancy.
Okay. So Town Street Theater was founded in 1993, right after the 1992 riots. And it was when the city of LA asked, can the arts help heal LA? My co-founder, Nancy Renee, who's a wonderful actress, director, producer, and my then boyfriend, Nathaniel Bellamy, an amazing artist, who became our everything guy, and the reason Town Street was able to actually function. We founded Town Street in 1993. In 92, we did a series of readings to reflect the fact that everybody has the same issues, whether they were Korean, whether they were Black, whether they were white, whatever. And we naively, because we were in our early 30s at the moment, we naively thought that we could be a multicultural theater, because that's what we wanted to do. And we did a couple of things, and we never got the audience that we got when we told our story. So we decided to say, we're just going to focus on our stories right now. And that's how Town Street came about. Speaking of Lorraine Hansberry, I directed the sign in Sidney Brustein's window at USC a few years ago. I'm adjunct there, and talking about a play that is relevant to the time. And this was, I think, 2 years ago. I did it in 2018, and it's still just so relevant. And our theater actually now, strangely enough, has sort of come full circle, because the Black story is our main story, but the Black story is also a shared history. So it includes a lot of different people. And our theater members have become more diverse as we've gone along. So that's an interesting thing. We look like what everybody talks about, you know, having this BIPOC thing. And, you know, we kind of laughed when that all came around because we're like, well, that's who we are, you know. But the two of Rhodessa and Woodie, just want to say thank you for your leadership and for giving us a place to aspire to. You know, I don't know if we'll make it to 50. I had to tell you. 28, we're 28 now. So I'm like, okay, 50, okay. I'll have to have our young folks bring that up. But Rhodessa and I, we share something. I don't know if you remember when we met at the signing of Black Solo Woman. Both of our work is in the book that was published by E. Patrick Johnson at Northwestern University. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And we did a reading of your Big Butt Girls, actually, back in 2015 that was directed by another Erin Washington, Erin Nicole Washington. So again, just this full circle of people. And I think that's part of also being Black in America, especially Black artists, because it's really a circle. It goes round and round. You eventually run into everybody, I think.
Rhodessa, you want to talk about the Medea Project, the beginnings of your founding story?
Yeah, well, you know, I started out in finished high school in 1966, moved away to the city. Rochester, New York was the city that was closest to me. I went to the University of Rochester for a while. I got involved with the Living Arts Theater. And you know, the first play I ever did was Marat Sade, which just like brought home how crazy it all is. I loved it. And then I went from there to my brother Azel was doing Toussaint L'Ouverture as a solo piece. And people from the community were coming because he just felt like people had to, he and my sister, they are Francophiles, they're Haitian files, they just love Haiti. And so I'm watching all this, and I started to dance with the dance company. I was doing aerial theater. I was doing, trapeze because I was interested in whatever was going to get me out there and be seen. And as we talk about telling our stories, what was so important to me was, you know, I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to be a part of this movement, but I wanted to come from this place where, hey, you ain't seen nothing like me yet. And I love the Black artists that I was meeting because there was room to really tell your story. And coming of age in San Francisco, there were a lot of people who said, Rhodessa, if you would just write a play that other people direct. I said, no, I have to be center stage with my work, with what I am doing. And one of the things that happened was that I got a job at the city jail in San Francisco teaching aerobics to incarcerated women. And they didn't want to do aerobics, but I was continuing my story as I was doing no-handed cartwheels, back bends, all this stuff. And I just turned 42. So these young women sitting in jail, there were so many young women that looked like me and my daughter sitting in jail. And they asked me, well, why are you telling us your business? And I told them, I said, I'm interested in how do we tell the story of who we are as a way to create a road out of here, create a road back to our, and this was our spirit. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but spirit just like led me that way. And they said, well, can we talk? Can we talk about who we are? And I said, as long as we engage in the truth. And this was after I had done The Legend of Lily Overstreet, which had been my piece about nude dancing in America, about the peep show industry, because my kid's father fell on the job. And so all of a sudden I had to earn the school fees. My daughter was going to a very prestigious school in Marin County, and she had a scholarship, but the school fees I had to generate. So I danced naked at night. And I always said to people, what is it about sex and race that makes such interesting bedfellows? that became a real question because people would feel like they wanted the young white women who, honey, they were tired, but they just got because they knew because they were white that somehow they were on top of the game, and at the same time, I was already performing. I was already glib. I already knew what was going on outside. This is around the same time Harvey Milk and these people were killed in San Francisco. All this is going on, and I got out of the business and I made a show about nude dancing, and I talked about these questions. I want the audience to tell me what's what. So I go from there to working in the jails. The California Arts Council asked me to teach aerobics to incarcerated women. So I go into the jails with incarcerated women and I tell my story to them. But I talked about being a survivor. I said, I refuse to be a victim. I am a survivor. I did that. Claim it. And they started to ask, can we talk? Can we talk about who we are? And it grew to be such an immense project because more and more women were coming to the gym where I was teaching and they wanted to cry, rant, and rave. But they also wanted to just talk about their narrow escapes. And I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do with all this information? So I got my actresses from the San Francisco community and I started meeting with them on the weekends. I said, look, there are these women that are just telling these amazing stories. And I need for y'all, I wasn't allowed to videotape. I had to write all this stuff down. So I would bring, on Saturdays, I would work with my actresses. And gradually we pulled our first show together, which was a mixture of their voices and professional voices and movement, that kind of stuff. And the Medea Project now is 40 years old. Woo! And we've been to South Africa. I've worked in South Africa a lot. And I've worked out Italy. I've worked in West Africa, in prisons. I've worked in Trinidad, in prisons, And Idris Akamor has always been such an amazing beacon because he was the man who said, hey, quit your day job. Because I had a kid, so I had a day job on top of all this. He said, quit your day job. We can do this. So all of a sudden we were like, we were getting up at like 5, 6 in the morning and calling Europe, making Idris Akamor is a phenomenal artist businessman.
Yes.
And it was fun because all the money, Woody, all the money we were making was our money. He was saying, look, let's even write our own songs. We don't have to pay nobody nothing, and ask for top dollar. And we would jump in a car and drive all over Europe all summer. And we do our pieces. We did pieces about jazz greats because he knew all about this stuff, Suppositions on History was this wonderful piece that he and I made about being a Black couple and calling up the other Black couples from history. And Idris just had all this information and it blew people's minds that this was art, that it was art. You just didn't have to be, well, Billy's story is a lot, but it was like, you didn't have to just sing. It was like telling the story. And I had that amazing fury. And I was very powerful. And it's physically, I was powerful. And coming from San Francisco, Martha Graham said that people from California believe anything's possible. So when I was out on the road, I was all up in your face. It was just like, and they loved it. But it has brought me to this place right now where I was just at Harvard's Hellenic Center for the Arts Friday. I actually did a whole presentation on my work with incarcerated women, but how I use the myths inside of the work. And that's just been the latest thing. And I'm getting ready to go back to Cornell. Well, I'm going to do stuff online, but I've been all over the place. The Academy wants to know what it is that we do that helps artist social change. It's like, how do we engage people? Because we know as Black folks here that we're all mighty. We're mighty, and I've been able to actually encapsulate that with incarcerated women and have them tell their stories and have them come to meet themselves in a gracious and empowering, ennobling way. Yeah.
All of you all are so fantastic. So fantastic. I just want to take a second to affirm Rhodessa. Rhodessa is a mentor of mine. I'm so grateful for you and I love you. When I was a young person in graduate school in San Francisco, I met Rhodessa. We talked for 3 hours one day, and she was like, "Girl, come to a class with me at Planned Parenthood." She was like, "Now you are gonna teach the class," and I was like, "Oh." She was like, "Get on out there." And I'm so grateful for your leadership. You know, each of you, you are way makers. My grandmother in Alabama used to say that Black folks make ways out of no ways. So I just want you to remember a moment that you as a founder made a way out of no way for your organization. I think that'll be hugely helpful for folks that are listening right now.
A way out of no way. Is that what you said?
You made a way out of no way where you made the money appear.
A way out of no.
Conversation with the board where you aligned what you needed to align so that you could get the funding that you got, where you shifted your view because you wanted to hold yourself and your community more accountable. How did you make a way out of no way?
I think
Well,
for us,
who do you want to speak?
Go for it, Nancy.
Okay.
all right, I'll go. So many things, because I think just making theater every time you are making a way. One of the things that comes to mind is when we lost our space. We actually started in a loft downtown LA before downtown LA was really popular. And it was in Nathaniel's loft, and it was a beautiful space. We'd been there 7 years. We started with a theater versus a lot of theaters in LA in particular don't start with their own space. So we had been used to 24-hour access, whatever we wanted to do. We ran the show, all of that. And then the people who said they'll never sell building sold the building. So that was devastating in a lot of ways, because we were like, oh my God, now what do we do? So we had to find a space that we felt comfortable in. We had to keep on putting up a show because we were not going to let the loss of that space mean the loss of the Town Street Theater. So we went to different places around the city, and we ended up actually, now we're in residence at the Stella Adler Theater in Hollywood.
Fantastic.
But that was a real learning curve. And I think what it really taught us is that you just have to always be flexible and nimble, because the money changes year to year. One year you get a grant, you get $50,000 from the Ford Foundation, and the next year you don't. So what do you do when it goes up and down? The numerous hats that we all have to wear. And I think what sort of permeates, in my opinion, from this conversation and through so many Black theaters is that the passion, the passion is what drives you. And if you have that passion, you will find a way to make the art, because you have to. Every time I think about, oh my God, it's too hard, I'm done, blah, blah, something happens and it creates the space that we need, or we creates that money, or like the Black Sea grant, which I'm sure you'll get into, having that come in was a great gift. And I think
go ahead and bring that to come from. Congratulations.
Thank you to everybody in this circle or the square, as it were. But yeah, I think you just, in the spirit of the 60s, you just have to keep on keeping on no matter what it is.
Mr. King?
When I came into New York from Detroit, I was in a play, acting in this play, and we started a theater called Theater Genesis in St. Mark's in the Bowery. And the play was a hit, and they built the theater, and they put us out. Then I produced the Black Quartet, and I found these artists who was directors and playwrights who I admired a lot. That was the late 60s. And I had traveled all over the United States, and I had a degree then in theater and a degree from Lehman College. And so when I went for my master's, I met so many people, teachers, etc. And I got a job at the Rockefeller Foundation. And I traveled all around the country actually giving out money.
Wow.
And out of that came a relationship with Black artists in California, Dick Anthony Williams, and the group who put together Big Time Buck White, relationship with Van Tile Whitfield, who went to the National Endowment for the Arts. And these relationships was solidified in that year. I was with the Rockefeller Foundation. And
Wow.
when I started the New Federal Theater, it was not hard to go back to them and get the money to start the workshops, et cetera, that we wanted to do. And and I didn't know this, if you could write 5 pages of what you wanted and put a budget on it, oh, they said, wow, this is good. You could get this. But I had learned that because you actually say what you want to do, and you are very honest about it. And if you're even now, you don't need but 5 pages and a 1.5 page budget. If you give it to the federal, city, and state, you know they're going to look at it. If you give it to private foundations, you know they're going to look at it. Now, whether they fund it or not is something else. They may not fund it because they may not like the plays that you're doing. But if I'm doing Ed Bullins and he wins the Drama Critics Circle Award, they cannot deny that play. Or J.E. Franklin's Black Girl, and it wins a Drama Desk Award. You can't deny that play. Or the plays that I produced that won Kennedy Center Award. You cannot deny that. You can act like you don't know it, but if you are in a foundation, if you are in a funding source, they can ask you to tell about it. If you cannot write about it, then you got problems. But fortunately, I was able to get people who knew how to do that. I will always get people who know how to write better than me. I will always get people who know how to put a budget together better than me. And I think that takes some, almost like when you read a play once, you read it twice, you know whether you want to do this play. And that's the way I've always worked. That's the way I work now. I read it once, then I read it twice because I want to know who's going to direct it. And I got in that second reading, I know who's going to direct it. I would suggest to the director who the actors are, and if they say yeah, we do it. You know, it's not a formula. Artistic matters are not formulaic, and it's that's why it's artistic. It's our artist's vision. It's whether you are with New Federal, or whether you with the Negro Ensemble, or whether you with the Inner City Cultural Center, a Cultural Odyssey. It's what you want to do as an artist, and that ultimately will lead to other things. I mean, you cannot come into New York as Cultural Odyssey and say, Woody, did you see Cultural Odyssey? Oh, no, I couldn't get there. No, you make it a point. No matter what you're doing, if they're at La Mama, you get there because you've heard so much about them. You know, they are not isolated in San Francisco. If you are producing, you're not isolated. You are everywhere, and that's what all the little Black magazines. That's what all the articles are about. You read them. You read, and you become knowledgeable. You become more and more knowledgeable. It's what I was saying earlier about the Center Theater Group, which is putting this panel together. The Center Theater Group is putting a panel together, talking to some Black artists, got a Black associate artistic director. That's all because of what Idris and other people did back in the day. You can say it's not. It's about what Nancy did back in the day. You can say it's not about what Rhodessa. It doesn't matter what Rhodessa did. It matters that the audience loved what Rhodessa did. connections with Ellen Stewart, her connections with the off Broadway movement. She didn't limit herself to her and Idris didn't limit themselves to San Francisco because they were bigger than that. They broke out of bags. They broke out. They expanded their wings and flew. You know, it's that's what when she talked about going to different parts of Africa, that's what we did. You know, we may be we might do Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream in Bermuda, the Bermuda International Theater Festival. We might have did it. You know, we were everywhere. And so if they would clip our wings, then we got people in Liberia, we got people in Ghana. Everybody who said, "What? You all clip New Federal Theater's wings?" You know, so it's yes, it's political, and no, it's not political.
I hear you. I hear you, Mr. King. Before I go to Rhodessa, I want to raise one of our ancestors in the space, Dr. Barbara Ann Tier, who said, "I want to blow my mind with Blackness," and a Black woman who created alliances with West African spaces when she was rejected for grant awards here in the United States and rejected by white money spaces, right? And she created a space where Black folk could still be able to produce throughout the whole African diaspora, right? Similar to you, Rhodessa, you've been all over the world. You know, I remember when I went to one of the Medea Project plays and you had the segment Fight Back, right? Where these women were speaking to the folks that abused them, right? What were some of the lessons that you picked up? Like, how did you make a way out of no way just in formulating the aesthetic in making the Medea Project?
Well, you know, I embraced on one level I was embracing Greek mythology, the chorus, and I told the actresses from the community, I said, you know, we are in the story of Medea. We are the nurse. We are the nurse. We stand with the woman. Sometimes we stand with the woman, literally put our hands on her as she talks about where she's really been, you know. And in rehearsal, somebody will break and they'll start to reveal something and they'll just crumble. And I'll say to the group, pick her up. We would pick people up and carry them around the room, you know. And I remember one day I had a class at the city jail, and there's this young white woman who had actually, she had saved her own life. I mean, she was, you know, she ran from these men who were going to, you know, men that she had known in high school, and now she had just gotten out of jail, and they were going to, like, the guy had said, look, come up to this place, and we're going to get busy. I got some money for you. And her girlfriend set her up. And the girlfriend never showed up. Girlfriend never showed up. And so she's telling us, we're sitting in the jail, and she's telling us about how she had to, like, at one point, she just kicked over the table and grabbed the bag of Coke and money. And she always had almost her pants and her boots because they were playing strip poker. And she had set it up so that I'm not going to take off my panties. I'm not going to take off my jacket. And she said the bag was literally talking to her. The bag was saying, okay, girl, to find that moment. You got to find that moment. It was like, now. She grabs the bag. She runs, jumps over the banister, and keeps there's 4 of the men in the room, and they're caught totally by surprise. It was like, what? And one guy shoots her in the hip. And she says, I was howling. I was out. She runs out into, this is in the Haight in San Francisco. She runs out and she runs out into the streets, and it was a woman that almost hit her, but stopped. And she said, those men are going to kill me. Help me, help me, help me. So she's telling us this. And inside the jail, I'm like thinking, okay, because I used to have Spirit a lot. I mean, when I could take them to this place, I say, okay, Spirit, you got to stay with me. They'll get up, you know. And she's talking about how she escaped, and she starts hyperventilating. And she's saying, I. And it was all Black women in the group that day, all older Black women. And they're like, come on, girl. I said, y'all, you've got to lay hands on her. And my God, was like, and they looked at me like, laying up hands? Hell yeah. And they literally lifted this young, and she was the only white girl. They lifted her up and they had their hands on her head. They had their hands on her chest. they were like, you all right? You all right? You all right? And I said, let's walk her around the room. And it was that mixture of Africa, spiritualism. These women, you know, they were all hardened criminals. I mean, like they were the serious OGs with heroin and that kind of stuff. But when I said laying on her hands, they got it. They just got it. And it was like, and that was how I learned how to teach, especially theater for incarcerated women. Everything is important. Everything. You can grab anything and share it. And for me, like what Woodie was saying, and Nancy, it's like I would go everywhere. I mean, somebody would give me a job. I was the artistic director of the San Francisco International Theater Festival. I got this job, which took me all the way to it took me to Dakar. It took me to Bamako. And I was in Paris. I was on a panel. But one thing, my curiosity, I'm curious about the world. But the other side of it is just like to be in Bamako. And you're in Bamako and it looks like the beginning of the world with blue people who work with dye, you know. So they are literally black and blue. And they're brothers that are 6 feet tall. You know, they're moving through the city. There's elephants, you know, and I would feel like I was in a cornucopia. You know, it was like, but as we're talking about it now, I have notebooks. So I'd go back to my hotel room and I would just write down the rush of feelings, the smells, you know, and I would also just and I would say, okay, Spirit, tell me, what else am I going to know about being in Africa? I didn't make a lot of money, but I was in Africa. I was like looking at dances. I was going to museums. I was in Bamako, for God's sakes, you know, Bamako. And then another story, I'm in Cape Town. And I go shopping. I'm ready to go home, and I'm looking like Mom. I got my hair kind of flipped under, you know, I got a little perm, and I'm walking. The taxi driver said, "Don't give the children any money," because a lot of children were living under the city. Their parents were dead. HIV had like devastated communities, and these kids would run in droves, you know, and they would follow me. They started following me, and the one little girl pulled on me, and I looked down, her face looked like someone that stuck her face in the cement, and all my grandma energy I said, wait a minute, what happened to her face? And all the kids are like, I said, no, but what happened to her face? And she's like, lady, I'm hungry. And the little boy said she fell down, and by now there are kids all over me. They're pulling at my clothes. They're pulling at my shopping bags, and they're teenagers now. And I had to go into American hip hop, raw, 24 karat. I said to those kids, I said, all you motherfuckers back up. They all went, oh no, she's not Mom. and I'm talking like this, and they're watching my mouth. And I'm thinking, thank God for hip hop. They're all of a sudden there's another reference for them. And I said, all you little motherfuckers. And the little ones are like, motherfucker. I said, you don't get to say it. I get to say it. And they're listening, and I'm just cussing them out. I'm like, you know, you big motherfuckers, back up off of me. And these kids are like, who the hell is this? She's not Mom. We ain't going to rob her. We ain't gonna rob her today. And I said, I ain't gonna give you little son of a bitches. And this is language. They're like, damn, she knows all the hip hop languages. But they're like, she is really cool. They're listening. And I'm like, Lord, stay with me, Jesus. Stay with me. Because they're bigger than me, some of these kids. And I said, I'm gonna take you and get you fish and chips. I'm not giving anybody any money. I said, tell her to back the fuck up. And they're looking at each other like, back the fuck up. No. And I'm thinking, thank you for hip hop, because they thought they had heard it somewhere, you see. And at the same time, I was a chameleon. It was like, who is this? What is this? You know? And we went and got fish and chips for all the babies. The older kids didn't. They wanted money to buy glue, which I found out later. But that was just a moment in the middle of Cape Town where everything comes to bear. And I'm like, I mean, I don't really cuss like that, but they were the kids got it. They just backed up. It was like, oh, we don't know who this is or what this is, but you're not gonna rob her today, you know. And that was just a richness for me as far as like my Americanness, you know, what we bring from home, you know, and even now in South Africa, when I was first in Johannesburg, and I was working in the prisons there, and I said to the women, I said, well, we're gonna write letters home.
Mm.
We're gonna write letters to our community. We're gonna write letters to our children. This is gonna be the first exercise. And God bless Nelson Mandela. I didn't know the full scope of it, but they said to me, "You mean like Papa Mandela?"
Mm.
And then they start telling me about how many times he had to write a letter home because some of them wouldn't get out, and they were in it. They were just in it. It was like, she knows something. And they told me about the museum, and I'm ready to cry because they're telling me about Mandela now. And they had all gone to school because of Mandela. They were women who, they were economic apartheid is real. So this is why they're in jail. And they're trying to get money for school fees, this kind of stuff. But they were just amazing as far as like, they got it when I was talking about the letters home, telling your children where you are, saying to your community what this is about, talking to the elders about asking for forgiveness. All of this became, text for the work. It was just, and then with Idris and I, we went to Vienna and we put out a call and we created an orchestra at this theater in Vienna where we had 2 little opera singers. We had this brother who was he was like a robot. We had several people who played instruments. We had people who danced, and we recreated Smalls. We recreated Smalls Paradise. A night at Minton's. We would take and mix up, music and history. They loved it, and they would do their homework. They would do their homework about who was there and how to dress, and so it was, and that's what Idris and I shared, because it was like, I make theater. I make art all the time. He's a fabulous musician, but I gave him permission to just cut loose. And he was brilliant as far as conductor, tap dancer, all this kind of stuff. And the stories about jazz in America. And we had an agent. He said, jazz is the American art form. He told us that. He was from Austria, and he said, at the end of the first night, he said, jazz is the essence of the American art form, and here we are in Vienna. So it was, just the richness of where the information comes from, and again, do your work. If you do your work, things will open up for you. They really will. Yeah.
Ashe, a laying on a hand, right? What's so crazy, y'all? We've been engaging in your deep well. Thank you so much for letting me sit at your feet to listen to the things that you've learned, right? The ways that you've made for some of us young founders coming up. Before we bring Tyrone back, what's one way that folks watching can participate in whatever you're making right now? I know, Mr. King, you were talking earlier about that New Federal Theater is going into the virtual space. Do you want to talk about that? Then we'll go to Nancy Rhodessa.
Yes, because the pandemic seems to be the only way to produce for the next 9 or 10 months. You can guess something else. And so we have to train people who know how to do that, who know how to edit, who know how to stage manage for it. And so we're going to do a virtual workshop, and it will be mainly in editing. So anybody who wants to come and join that workshop, they can certainly join that workshop. And we are also, with the money from Black Seed, going to hire a marketing person. And from money from Black Seed, also hire a development person to find funds for us to do other things that we want to do. And we need those people to be in charge of that, and people who know how to do that. And yes, that's what we want. We want to hire those 2 people, and we want to set up this workshop, and we're doing it immediately. It's not something they have to wait around for, because we've been doing it without that.
That's right.
Since March of last year. And so, and we've been doing very well, but we know how much work it is to do that. But I wanted to say something to Nancy about River Rouge. Are there any theaters in River Rouge? Are there any because growing up in Detroit, there was no place to go. River Rouge was more like the Ford Motor Company town. Like you said, your family worked there. And
Right.
in these towns like that, something told you to go to California, whether it was going to school or wherever you were going. Something. So I came along in 58, 59, and if you weren't a doo-wop singer, which we all were, you could not do Motown. All our friends who were doo-wops with us on the corner joined Motown, and a few of us wrote songs, whether it was Smokey Robinson or Mickey Stevenson or some of the Vandellas, but we were into the spoken word. We were into what it was that you sat down for an hour and a half or 2 hours and watched, and you would leave with this message. And this message is something about the survival of us as a people. And I couldn't find that anywhere else. I could go to school, but and where I went to school, I don't know if you know this, Nancy, but in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, you could get a scholarship, but they tell you right away, we are not going to put you on the stage with any white women and white girls. They tell you, it was not a big thing. And I said, okay, I'll do these monologues, whether it's Richard III or something from Tennessee Williams. And I became very proficient at it because that was the only way I could learn it. But when I came to New York and got in Lloyd Richards' acting class, it was totally different. It was totally different. And the people I knew from around the world, around the United States, had similar experiences. But I have never run into anybody from River Rouge. And so when the gentleman who I worked with at the Ford Motor Company, and you got to understand, the Ford Motor Company recruited us right out of high school, and it was to supervise these old people. It would be three of us, and we would show them how to arc weld, which we had learned in school. And they would say right away, get out of here, young blood, get out of here. And as I read more and more and more, I didn't find anybody who had lasted there. And I lasted 3 years. And then this old man came to me and said, I almost want to say he's old, but I said I was 21. And I got out of there. And I went to making maybe 1/3 working for the city of Detroit that I made it forward. You know, but what did I need the money for? So
Right.
I'm saying, Nancy, talk to me about that. River Rouge is
River Rouge. River Rouge is a little, factory town. I never knew about the theater. As corny as it sounds, I loved watching Shirley Temple movies, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to sing and dance, and I would write up little shows with my little friends, and we put them on in the garage. And, then when I got into high school, I had to give credit to my drama teacher, Susan Tubert. And she gave me a role in 8th grade because our school went from 8 to 12. And it was there that my love for acting just blossomed. I went to Western Michigan University after that for a couple of years. Then I went to ACT in Rhodessa's hometown of San Francisco. And what brought me out here, I remember being a little girl in River Rouge, looking up the street, which actually led to what they called Visitor Road, which was a real kind of like dicey street in those days, because I grew up in the 60s and 70s was my time. And thinking, I can see the beach. I want to see the beach where I live. And that dream brought me to Los Angeles. I always wanted to live in California. I always wanted to play with my friends. So I think that's where Town Street really comes from. I started as an actor. I had what you call a creative evolution, an actor to a producer to a director. And now I mainly direct and produce, and acting is like the third thing now, which I never thought would happen. But it was really about wanting to come from somewhere and do something and be somebody. That song, I'm from a small town. It rings true. And now I'm so thankful because I'm still in touch with all my friends. We had our 40th anniversary a couple of years ago. And, to have that connection, again, this connection to people, to my people from that town, but River Rouge is still, it's hanging in there. It didn't get assigned one of those managers that they were doing, city managers they were doing in Detroit for a while. So it's an interesting space to come from, but it just goes to show you, no matter where you come from, if you got a dream and you want to do something, you can do it.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Tyrone, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rhodessa, Woodie, and Nancy, for this conversation. I love all of the connectivity. I love hearing the work that you all are now currently doing. To the audience out there, New Federal Theater is hiring is doing with the Medea Project and with Cultural Odyssey. And please check out Nancy's work at Town Street Theater. Tyrone, you are a good friend of mine. We have a deep, rich history. So before you kind of close us out, I want to take a cue from Rhodessa. Rhodessa talked about her work being a laying on of hands. And so Rhodessa, Woodie, and Nancy, is it any way possible that you can give just a short, quick blessing nugget to Tyrone as he ventures into this new job here at Center Theater Group? What is one bit of wisdom, of word of blessing that you offer to him as he enters this role? And I think folks that are listening also will be able to take that to heart as well. You want to start, Nancy, and then we'll go to Woodie and we'll close with Rhodessa.
I would say, Tyrone, first of all, we are all collectively so proud of you and so happy for you in this moment. And I would offer a blessing of understanding and compassion, because I think you're going to need it.
Thank
you. Ashe, ashe. Mr. King?
I would say wherever you go, Tyrone, in the Center Theater Group, go with 4 or 5 plays that are brilliant, that are awesome, that you think they should do. And if they do them and if they are hit, you will be irreplaceable.
Thank you. Rhodessa.
I would remind you that you introduced me to Peter Brook, which was like us colored people standing around looking at Peter Brook, and at the same time he was so real. He was just like so real. You have this to do whatever you want with it, And I would say, whatever you do, make sure that your day starts with you having some time just to be still. Just to be still and just to let it all flow past you. And I would repeat the Rhodessian theory. I will grow greatly. I will grow wisely. I will purge myself of ill feelings. I will know myself. Oh, yes, I will learn myself. I will love myself and let it flow from there.
Wow.
Ashe, ashe. And my word to you, Tyrone, is never go into any space alone. You have a full community that is here and present for you. And whatever space you are in, we are also there. Those of us that are in the flesh and those of us that are in the invisible, Because remember, we have invisible warriors, AKA our ancestors, that are crafting spaces for us in ways that sometimes our mind can't even imagine. So we all here on this call want to take this time to send blessings to you for the journey that you have. We are here, as Rhodessa, Woodie, and Nancy said, they are here for you, and we're so happy for you in what you will craft with Center Theater Group. So I just want to pass it to you, Tyrone, to close us out.
Wow, I'm full, man. Thank you all so much, Rhodessa, Woodie, Nancy, for your wisdom and just your energy, and certainly for paving the way for someone like myself to be in this space. I do recognize that, and I want to say thank you for that. And of course, thank you, Erin, for leading this conversation. Sorry for the difficulties at the beginning, but it all worked out the way it's supposed to work out. So again, I'm grateful for this time that we had a chance to spend together. And before we end, I wanted to just highlight that in about 30 minutes, we're launching Not a Moment, but a Movement. Now, this is a series of events that amplifies and centers Black artists. You know, Not a Moment, but a Movement is in collaboration with the Fire This Time Festival in New York and Watch Village Theater Company here in LA. And this series is one of the ways we're honoring our commitments to change. And so you'll be able to check it out right here on our YouTube page and also on our website. And we'll feature music by Jessica Laurel, visuals by Kenyatta A.C. Hinkle, the beautiful play Foundation, written by Angelica Sherry, starring Sharia Irving, directed by Caesar Williams. So I'm so excited for this project. And this is episode 1. There'll be more to come. And certainly just walking in the vision and the path that you all have created for me. So I'm excited for it. I hope you all tune in to watch it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, I guess we'll see you soon.
Thank y'all so much. Y'all be blessed now.
All right.
You too. Thank you, Erin.